All right, guys, my name is Rami. I have been in the world of diving. I got certified in diving in 1994. I grew up in Saudi Arabia. I dove there for 3 years. From the time I was 94, I would have been 16, I think. Yeah, 16. Dove for 3 years, and then I didn't dive for 10 years. Diving freaked my mom out, actually. Pretty much everything I did freaked my mom out. But diving really terrified her that I did it. I even had a trip to Hawaii for work one time, and I asked my mom to send me my prescription mask so I could dive. And she was living in Saudi Arabia at the time. I was in Chicago. She wouldn't frickin' send it. I told her, I'm like, Mom, I could just rent stuff. And she goes, I don't. If you rent it, I'll kill you. And the funny thing is, she wasn't joking. So I didn't dive for 10 years, and then I got back into the world of diving by cleaning fish tanks at the Bass Pro Shop. Those of you who've been to my talks before have probably all heard this. I should actually quiz you instead of telling you. But yeah, and I remember I was cleaning the tank one time, and there was, to me it was like a 9-foot catfish. I think it was probably a foot long. But it seemed like it was 9 feet, and it was just hanging out right next to me. And I just thought it was like the coolest freaking thing in the world. And it just it reminded me how much I loved diving when I was younger, but at 16 I didn't have the appreciation I have for it now. And so in 2006 I started working professionally in the dive industry, became an instructor in 2008, started organizing trips in 2010, and I mean, I love all aspects of diving, but I would definitely say that travel is my favorite thing. Like if I could travel 365 days a year, I would do it. So today, I want to talk to you guys about Komodo National Park in Indonesia. It's a place I went to last year in October, and I'm actually going again later this year in September. Who's been to Indonesia scuba diving? Show of hands. Indonesia. So you were in Lembeh, Abhishek, right? Lembeh also?
Lembeh, Bali.
Lembeh, Bali.
Bali.
Lembeh, Bali. Where in Indonesia? Bali, Indonesia. Where'd you go?
Mosul.
You guys were Mosul and Wakatobi? Yeah. I can't remember if I have a whole map of Indonesia, but we'll look at a bigger map of Indonesia in a little bit. Indonesia's massive. One of the coolest places in the world to go diving. And I think in an entire lifetime, even if you went diving every day, I don't know that you could cover all of the diving that was there. So today's talk is specifically about Komodo, and all I'm going to do is give you a little bit of a rundown about Indonesia, talk a little bit about Komodo, show you a bunch of pictures, and just tell you about my trip and my experience there. You're welcome to interrupt me with any questions while I'm giving the presentation. You do not have to wait till the end for the Q&A. Feel free to just shout it out, raise your hand, whatever you like. Okay, those of you who saw my last Indonesia talk might find this familiar because it's the exact same slide I had in the last Indonesia talk, because nothing's really changed there except last time I talked to you guys, the population was about 281 million, and now it's 285 million. So ever since I've been there, there's been about a 4 million population boom. You can make that mean whatever you want. Right? Indonesia is made up of over 17,000 islands, and those of you who've been there, this is one of my favorite things about it. You'll see a rock the size of my hand sticking out of the water with a tree on it, and that is counted as an island. Most likely it has a name, right? It's got 50,000 miles of coastline, and it is the world's largest archipelagic state. And it's also the 14th largest country area-wise. To me, I find these stats fascinating because before going diving in Indonesia, I didn't really know too much about it, but it's kind of an impressive country. It's the most populous Muslim country in the world, and most areas in Indonesia are Muslim. Bali is one of the few areas where the majority is actually not. It's more Hindu and Christian on that island. Java, which is, I don't know if it's the biggest island in Indonesia. It's definitely the most populated island, and then that's where the capital, Jakarta, is.
Papua.
And what's that?
Papua is pretty big.
Papua's pretty big.
Yeah.
And interestingly, almost half of the population of Indonesia lives on Java, on this one island. We'll get more into the marine life area of Komodo specifically, but Indonesia, even though we all go there for diving, and we all do its topside stuff too, it actually is one of the most biodiverse places in the world, not just in the ocean. Even on land, it's a very exciting place to tour if you like all kinds of wildlife and wilderness. Because it's around the equator, the climate is pretty reliable year-round. Pretty much the only difference is whether you want to go in rainy season or dry season, right? And then rainy season, I think, is like November to, I think it's up here somewhere, November to April, and then dry season is May to October. I've been there in rainy season, and we had good luck. I don't know, I think, in travel you try to plan specifically on what are better times of year to go places, but sometimes...
Yeah, I think we're still the rainy season.
You're still in rainy season, but I don't know, when we went, we had like a couple of days of rain, and I was there for a month, so it wasn't too bad.
Yeah, we were the same. We had rain in Limbe a couple days.
Yeah. And you were there in March, February?
Yeah,
March. Yeah.
Exactly.
So like it's the harder rainy season and not a lot of rain.
One day on Bali that it rained or something. Yeah.
And then other than Australia, it has the most number of endemic species in the world, meaning that there are things that are only found there. Australia wins the title on the deadliest because everything kills you in Australia. But in Indonesia, they're a lot more friendly. Okay, so Komodo specifically is what we're talking about. It is a national park. It's made up of 3 main islands, which are Komodo, Rinca, and Padar, and then 26 smaller islands, right? And they're all volcanic islands. It is in the Coral Triangle, and it was founded as a national park in 1980, and in 1991 it became a UNESCO World Heritage Site, and it's considered in the top 25 places in the world for biodiversity. I'm not sure who ranks that, but I found it online, so I'm pretty sure it's true. Oh, has anyone heard of these new 7 wonders of the world? I didn't know this existed. Anyone heard of this? Yeah. In 2007, apparently they did a vote, and they came up with 7 new wonders of the world. They did a voting from 2007 to 2011. I think they got 100 million votes was the deal. And I'm shocked that out of that, Komodo got ranked in the 7th wonders. But it is a pretty cool and unique place. It's home to about 5,700 Komodo dragons. I saw 4 of them when I was there. The other 5,696 eluded me. Did not know where to find them. It's generally a hot and dry climate. We were there in October, and that's what the weather was like, especially when we were on the island. Going on land, it was very, very hot and very dry. And size-wise, 670 miles squared. I found this interesting. Raja Ampat is 27,000 square miles, whereas Komodo's only 669, significantly smaller than Raja Ampat. And someone was asked, Zach, we were talking about this earlier. I'm going to talk about my experience of doing Komodo on a liveaboard, but you can do Komodo land-based. And you can do it from a couple of places, but I'll show you on a map in a little bit where most people do it from. Okay, so someone earlier asked me if I was going to be talking. This talk was about Komodo dragons, and I lied so he would come here. So I prepared the slide for you real quick, Jordan, as I was driving. So Komodo, everyone's heard of it. It's famous for their Komodo dragons, and the big thing is they're only found there. They're nowhere else in the world. Interestingly enough, they actually think there's some evidence that they believe they came from Australia, but they are not in Australia.
They all moved from there.
This is like they found some skull, and they believe that's somehow they migrated from there. They can swim. I don't know what kind of distance to whatever they come here, but they do swim. Which is funny. We were getting ready to do a dive at one point, and there's like a beach where the Komodo dragon is right there, and they give us the briefing, and then the guy goes, "Oh, and by the way, did you guys know that Komodo dragons swim?" And then he's like, "All right, everybody in the water." So they're part of the monitor family of lizards, and they are the largest of all living lizards. The reason I emphasize living is, I guess, because before there was something bigger than them, right? But now they are the largest of living lizards. They mate between May and August. They lay their eggs in September. That's more of like you want to plan a trip because you want to see Komodo dragons mating, then go in May and August. If you want to see them lay eggs, then go in September. And the odds are you probably won't see either of those if you go during those times of year. But if you want to increase your odds. They are carnivores, but interestingly, they mostly eat carrion, which is just dead and rotting flesh. So they prefer just to eat you when you're already dead. So stay alive, and most likely you don't have a problem with a Komodo dragon.
What is putrefying?
What's that?
What is putrefying?
Putrefying, rotting, decaying. So, does anyone know, have you guys heard of this thing about Komodo dragons, that it's not, they don't kill you, they bite you, and then they let you die? So there's like some truth to this apparently, and there isn't. They also have found they do just rip their prey to shreds. They're pretty impressive animals. The big misconception was they used to think they had a bacteria in their mouth that was a very septic bacteria. And in 2013, some research came out that said the bacteria in their mouth is really no different than most other animals, but they're venomous. So they do have a venom that can be deadly.
Then now you just corrected me, because that's what I thought too.
What's that?
I thought it was bacteria.
That was the big thing forever, actually. Yeah, that's what they thought for a long
Probably
time.
not to be that strong because they're pigs, so they're going to venomate and mass them out.
Correct. Yeah.
So they have.
So it's very important, guys. What's that?
Their venom is in the saliva, or they actually have venom
I thought that
From their bite. Where it comes from, not sure,
It
but
could be
it's
their saliva.
delivered by the bite. Yeah.
But I don't think they have fangs like
No.
No, just teeth.
More
Yeah.
research.
more research.
Did you say more research needed, Eric? Yeah, Eric's gonna get back to us next year after he studies the Komodo dragons very closely.
On your next talk, he'll
Just
know.
gonna go get bit by a Komodo dragon and tell us all about it.
So make sure you avoid them because of their venom and also just because of their overall vicious nature. Right?
Are they vicious?
They can be.
Yeah.
This is the funny thing. You get all these warnings about them, then like you go do the tour on the park, and they're like the laziest freaking thing you ever see in your life. Yeah, like the ones we saw never moved. It was kind
Well,
of
so like sharks too. Like normally that's not a problem, but they get triggered.
exactly. Yeah. So when we saw them, they mostly were just laying there. They're sunning. There was not a lot. But from what I've heard, like everything, it depends when you go, what your experience is going to be, and what kind of encounters you have with them. Right? Like I said, I saw 4 of them. I've had friends go do, and they saw like 30, 40 dragons on their visit. Also, something to note. There is actually a proper national park, Komodo National Park, where you can go and they have guides that like give you a tour. The guides are fantastic. Like there's 3 guides with these really long sticks, and they give you this whole briefing about if something happens, don't worry, they'll take care of it with this long stick, and you're just looking at them going, I'm pretty sure no, but I'll just go
I think
on
they
to
can
the
be
ride.
pretty fast when they
They can be pretty fast, yeah. Okay, so I'm going to tell you a little bit about the boat that I go on when I do trips. It's called the Pindido. And this gentleman here, Eddie Frommenwheeler, 1991 is not when he was born. It's when the
I was
boat was
wondering
born.
about
that. That is when the boat was born. But I just want to talk about it a little bit because his story is so fantastic. It's really amazing. Eddie's a Swiss guy from Switzerland, and when he was younger, he was a long-haul truck driver, and what I mean by long hauls, he drove heavy machinery from Europe down to the Middle East. These were the trips that he was taking. And so in this, he was like traveling around the world, started understanding the world's a pretty neat place and interesting. He started doing tours and travel and leading people around doing travel and ended up in Indonesia and fell in love with Indonesia. He ended up becoming a certified diver, and after having only 80 dives under his belt and knowing absolutely nothing about a liveaboard and building a ship, he decided, I want to build a liveaboard. Right? So imagine 80 open water dives. You know nothing about diving and diving in Indonesia. And he spoke no Indonesian. Right? And he decided, I want to build a liveaboard.
Normally I would recommend against it.
Yeah, right? So he was checking into a hotel one time. There was a lady there at the hotel. He liked her. Asked her out. She said no, something related to work, and I forget exactly how the follow-up. Ultimately, he convinced her that he needed a translator, and she came on board to help him translate for the crew as they built this boat. She is now his wife. They've been married for 30-some years. So the history of the boat itself is fascinating, but the other really cool thing is Eddie's the guy who discovered diving in Raja Ampat. So this is like why I find this man so fascinating. 80 dives, builds a boat, and is somehow convinced that there has to be good diving in Raja Ampat. He was there, saw something, and he just was convinced there was good diving there. And so after he built this boat, he had to convince people to come on the boat, pay him to go take them diving to a place that nobody has ever been, right? I mean, it was just kind of a crapshoot. And the way he explains it is, what they found was pretty much everywhere they jumped in, the diving was very good, right? So they very quickly realized, like, there is something here. Yeah? And he's great to be on the boat with. He's one of those great storytellers. Can be a real ass sometimes. You'll get into it if you have to. But he's just He's an interesting guy who lives very much on his own terms, and as a result has built this amazing ship, and it's a lot of fun to be on this boat. My favorite thing about this boat is there's not really an itinerary. They've been doing these waters so many years that when you get on the boat, they have a plan of where to go, but they will adjust based on weather. If they hear there's something good somewhere else, or if there's a lot of other liveaboards somewhere, they will pick and go to other places, right? And I like that sense of adventure. And I like the sense of sometimes they'll just be like, guys, we've never dove here. Do you want to just take a chance and jump in and dive in this new place? And again, that's just his mentality on how he does things, and he carried that forward to this boat. So this is the boat that I do my Indonesia trips on. These are some pictures of the boat, the cabin. Their dive deck is massive. The dive deck cracks me up. There are 24 crew on this boat for 16 guests. Right? And the dive deck, if you notice, there are no cylinders on the dive deck at all. They have all of their cylinders back on the stern where they fill them. And then when it's time to dive, it's like an army. Like, it's amazing. I mean, you just start hearing all this metal clanking, and you look outside, and it's just like ants moving tanks to the front of the boat. Right? And then they set up all your gear for you, and then you're off diving, and then you come back, and they do everything the opposite. Right? So it's nice. It does keep the deck really nice and clear. Actually, the fun thing on this boat is, the minute you peel your wetsuit off and it hits the ground, someone grabs it and is washing it for you. Right? And so the game becomes, how close to hanging your own wetsuit can you get before someone takes over? Right? Yeah.
And they got toilets.
It's a fun challenge.
They got toilets.
They have
It's called
toilets.
a
Yeah, that's right. Actually, this is an interesting thing of this boat.
Yeah.
All the cabins have a toilet and shower, but they do not have one anywhere else on the boat. So, like, when you need to go use the bathroom, you have to go down to your cabin or somebody's cabin. This is Eddie, by the way.
Yeah, I looked at it.
Eddie likes his cocktails, so by the end of a good night, he's a really good time. This right here, this is a really cool thing they do. I think a lot of boats in Indonesia do this, but on the last night on the boat, they do a very traditional Indonesian meal.
Rice toffel?
What's that?
Rice toffel?
That's this one right here.
Yeah, rice toffel.
Where you
It's
chop
a
off the
variety.
top?
No,
that's
a
not it.
variety of little.
Oh, yes, yeah, like the style you mean, yeah. So this is like, it's a neat thing. They do it up on the sun deck, and the crew, all of them, all 24 of them, they come up and they sing and play guitar and play drums, and they perform like 6 or 7 songs. It really is one of the coolest experiences I've had on a boat. So for me now, going back on this boat is like going to see my family. They're my guys, and I love going there. Yes, actually.
So you said the last night they'll serve you Indonesian food. What about the other?
Throughout the week you're eating Indonesian cuisine.
Okay.
This is more of a traditional style
Got
of
it.
like how they do it. Yeah, but a lot of times, you guys
They're
were
like just giving you American food.
No. Actually, I think almost all the food we ate was more Indonesian on the boat. Yeah.
And Indonesian food, I think, is one of the best foods in
It's delicious.
the world.
Yeah.
And you don't find it very often.
Yeah, exactly. And what I discovered, like they do soup for breakfast. They have like a hot noodle soup for breakfast. It's like the best thing in the world, man. Like I never thought I'd eat soup for breakfast and enjoy it, but they do it and it's fantastic. Fried rice, people are like wolfing down fried rice for breakfast. It was very strange at first, but you embrace it on the second day. You're good to go. Okay, so now let's get into Komodo, where it is, etc., etc. So this is Komodo National Park. It sits on pretty much the very southern part of Indonesia, right? And it sits between the two bigger islands of Flores and Sumbawa. On the trip we did, we flew from Bali to Bima. We got on the boat in Bima. We did a little whale shark excursion here. There's an area where they feed the whale sharks, and they're just right up at the surface, so you can go and swim with them. I don't know how I feel about the experience. It's kind of crowded, but if you've never been with whale sharks and you want them right in your face, they are right in your face there. And then, so from Bima, we did a little diving around this island, and now the name of this island is escaping me. Worked our way over here, and then we cruised around, did some diving around the park, different islands, and then we ended our trip over here in Maumere, where we then flew back to Bali.
Is this a week, 10 days?
This was 12 nights, I think, 12 or 13 nights. Yeah. So this is giving you more of the bigger picture of Indonesia and where Komodo is located. So Bali is here, Jakarta is here, and then Komodo is here just towards the east and the southern part.
And where is the equator?
That I do
Well,
not
a little
know.
further north.
Yeah, I think it's further
So
up.
it's, okay, so it's south of the equator.
South of the equator, yes.
Okay.
And then, like, Raja Ampat is right in this area, right over here. Those of you guys who've been to Lembe and that area, that's right up
That's what we're
over
going.
Yeah,
here.
that's what-
You guys are going, so Lembe's right up here. You'll fly into Manado and then you get over
And
to
then
Lembe over there.
that big thing kind of in the upper left, is that Borneo?
Yes, so this is, I forget, it's multiple countries
Yeah, it's
actually.
Indonesia,
Brunei,
Malaysia.
Indonesia, and Borneo, exactly. Yeah, exactly. And then this is just more like zoomed in on just Komodo. These are the three big islands. You have Komodo, you have Padar, and then you have Rinca Island, and then you have all the little 26 islands sprinkled about. Here in the southern part of Rinca, I'll just tell you guys the story now. This was so interesting. We've been diving for, I don't know, 6 or 7 days. Water was blue, 80, 82 degrees. Yeah. Then we made our way down here. They call this Horseshoe Bay. Horseshoe Bay is an amazing, amazing place. It's really, topside is gorgeous and the diving is unbelievable. So my morning routine on the boat is I would get up, I'm usually up very early in the morning, I go to the stern, that's where the crew's quarters are. And I don't know, those of you who've been to Indonesia, Indonesians smoke a lot, right? And so the crew on the boat, like they have a lounge in the back of the boat and they smoke there. So my routine in the morning
Still
would
smoke those clove cigarettes?
yeah, they smoke the cloves, and so I go, I have my coffee, I have a couple of cigarettes with the crew in the morning to get my day started. And on this particular day, they were all leaning over the back of the boat, hanging something in the water, and they didn't look very happy. So I told the cruise director, I'm like, Ape, what's going on? He's like, don't worry about it, Rami, just go, like, get your gear on. I go, yeah, but what's in the water? He goes, it's a thermometer. I go, why is there a thermometer in the water? He's like, we're just checking the water temperature. I go, why, Ape? And he goes, just go get your gear on. And I looked up. The guides had been diving in like shorts and maybe a long sleeve shirt. And I look at the guides and they are putting everything they can on, right? Like they are just layering up with neoprene. And he wouldn't tell me what the water temperature was. And I was like, all right, I'll just put on whatever I have. So they told everybody the water was colder. And again, we've been diving in about 82-degree water for the past 6 days. So the boat has 4 speedboats, 4 little Zodiacs. They have 4 guys, they have 4 people to a speedboat. We go out, and the first group hits the water, and all you hear is, yeah! And you're on yours going, I don't know if this is a good idea. This is really not a good idea. And you hit the water, and we went from 82 to 67 overnight.
Oh,
that was the
my
water
kind of
drop.
water.
Right? Yeah, it was like, but you're not really prepared for it. You know, you packed for an 82-degree water trip. So, but this was the amazing thing about Horseshoe Bay. I hit the water and I was like, cool, I'll do a 5-minute dive and then like I'll get out and go get some hot chocolate, yeah? 60 minutes later, you're still down there, yeah? It's the diving it's unbelievable. And honestly, this is how I'd explain all my Indonesia experiences and Komodo specifically. You will be seeing something every second of the dive if you are open to it, right? I mean, if you have a very good guide, obviously that helps, but the marine life there is unbelievable, especially the macro world. And I'll talk about that a little bit more as I get into the photos. But if you ever do a liveaboard, I highly recommend asking whether Horseshoe Bay is on the menu. And double check what the temperature is the time of year that you're going there, but it's a really, really beautiful place to dive. Also in Horseshoe Bay is one of the beaches that you can go on, because it's not in the national park, that you can go on and hopefully get closer to the Komodo dragons if you want to do that. When we went, unfortunately, there was just one hanging out on the beach.
What kind of plane do you fly from Bali to?
There's a few different airlines, a regular commercial plane, but it's either Lion Air, Batik, or Garuda. Yeah.
Okay, so you could fly with 120 pounds of luggage.
You can fly with whatever you want, Charles, but you pay a lot.
Oh.
So this just changed because when I was there in October, and I think I had to pay like $200 one way for my luggage. You pay a lot. You can bring whatever you want. My recommendation would be put as much weight in your carry-on and your backpack as possible, because they don't weigh those, but they weigh your checked bags, and pretty much every airline is now charging on that. All right, so the next slides, you guys, are just pictures that I took when I was there. And as I show you them, I'll just tell you about our trip. If you have any curious questions about what I'm showing you, you can let me know. This guy right here, you didn't know what this is?
Yeah.
What is it, Dean?
Bobbit.
Bobbit worm. I'd heard about these. I never saw one in my life, right? And, you know, like I'm telling you, on a dive, you're seeing something constantly. So, and usually it's something pretty exciting that you're on and taking a picture of. So I'm on like a frogfish taking photos, and the guide will not stop yanking me. He's like, you got to get over here. You got to get over here. And I swim by, and he's pointing, and you know, your mind is not processing like that I'm going to see something like this. So it's like I'm looking right at it, and I don't even see what he's pointing at, and he's getting frustrated. He's like, Jesus, like it's right here. I finally saw it, and things like this make me laugh because I always crack up at people who are terrified of sharks and stuff. But this is the stuff I see that I'm like, no, I'm not. I don't want to be anywhere near this thing right now. This thing was freaky. It was so. I mean, it was cool and beautiful, but it was freaky. Right?
How big is that?
It was pretty decent size. It was probably like this.
Oh, wow.
Sticking out of the
That
ground.
big?
Oh yeah.
That
This
big
thing
around?
was
I
pretty
did
big.
not-
Like from here to here.
Because
Yeah.
they're
Yeah.
hugely long.
Yeah.
They can be real small, really big.
Yeah, this guy, like, this end to end was probably like that. Yeah, it was pretty decent size.
So did you give your finger just to see the...
I did not.
You didn't
I
test
did
it?
not. No.
Test it.
So one of the interesting things, I had done Raja before doing Komodo, and what most people said to me is do Komodo, because the big difference to Komodo over Raja is big life, like a lot of bigger life. I'm going to say from my experience, like I would consider that like really the only big things we saw were some mantas, which I'll post you.
Where?
In Komodo.
Oh, Komodo.
Yeah, which we saw mantas in Raja also. It's not sharky, you know, you'll see an occasional reef shark or a white-tip reef shark cruise by. So really, what I would say is it's more macro diving and stunning reefs. There's a lot of beautiful, colorful, healthy reefs in Komodo, a lot. Like it's pretty breathtaking, and some of the reefs are exploding with fish life. Like, I mean, it's things I have never seen, that quantity of fish just popping out of coral and swimming all around. It really is something quite spectacular. Octopus you see them almost every day, and all kinds. Mimic octopus, wonderpus, long arm octopus, coconut octopus. Actually, on this trip, it was funny, on our checkout dive. You know, like on a checkout dive, you always jump in and you're like, should I bring my camera? Should I not? Like, should I even like care how I dive? You know, it's just like they're just throwing me in some crappy place. We jump in, and in the first 5 minutes, we had 3 wonderpus like on us. Yeah, like that wasn't just 5 minutes underwater. Yeah, so imagine the next 55 minutes of that dive, and then just the next 12 days. And this is how it went on the entire time.
How many dives a day?
You do 4 dives a day, usually 3 during the day and then 1 at night.
Beautiful.
Yeah. So the dive schedule on this boat, like many liveaboards, I think they ring the bell at 6 o'clock in the morning. There's small breakfast. Then we do the first dive. Then you come back and you eat a big breakfast. Then you go do another dive. Then you come back and eat lunch. Then you go do another dive. And I think
Tea afterwards.
Tea.
yeah, well, no, there's food 24/7. Like, I'm skipping the snacks between dives. Just on this one, I forget. You either would do a night dive and then have dinner, or you would have dinner and then do a night dive, right? I personally prefer to do the night dive and then have dinner, but it just, from a scheduling standpoint, it just depends. But this was a place where they would do 4 dives, 3 during the day, 1 at night. The night diving here, mind-blowing. I mean, frankly, I would do a trip where they just did 4 night dives. The night dives were absolutely extraordinary. So this is a crocodile fish, ornate ghost pipefish. It's hard. Sometimes you think in Indonesia, I'm not going to say you see a lot, but you do see trash in the water.
I was going to ask about
Like you guys did Lembe, right? And when I did Lembe, everyone was always like, oh my God, there's just garbage. The way they make it sound is that you're diving in a garbage pit, right? And I didn't find Lembe to be that way. Like, yeah, there was trash, but not. The interesting thing is, though, I mean, this octopus, it was so cool. We watched him do this. He just crawled into this bottle, and then he grabbed this bag of potato chips and wrapped it around him. You know? So,
That's cool.
like, in some way, I don't know, I guess they've embraced our garbage. Don't throw your garbage in the ocean thinking you're helping the octopus, right?
You ever see Gods Must Be Crazy?
It's a good.
That
Yeah.
Monty Python? No.
It's a Coke bottle.
With the
No,
Coke.
man, I don't think I've seen that.
Yeah,
I'll have to look that up,
in the
Matchup.
80s.
Yeah.
Oh, God must be crazy.
Frogfish, you guys, you see a ton of frogfish. Those of you who've been diving, this is one of the cool things. This was my first time to Komodo. People that were on this trip had been to Komodo like 7 or 8 times. And on one of the days, we saw a hairy frogfish. A hairy frogfish is not like super common, so I thought. Yeah? So these people who'd been 7 times never seen a hairy frogfish. So on this one dive, we saw a hairy frogfish. And these people are all photographers, so it was like absolutely insane. Yeah, this poor frogfish. I think it still can't see, quite frankly. But then by the end of the trip, we'd seen like 50 hairy frogfish on this trip. So it's what I love about diving. These people had been there so many times, never saw one. And then on this one trip, they were everywhere. The whole joke was that they were my cousins. So they named them all after me. I don't have my shirt off, but I'm quite hairy. So they all think I'm related to the frogfish. But anyway, a lot of frogfish, cool and different kinds of seahorses. I don't know, some people are into like crabs and shrimp. I love little things like this. I mean, the little tiny critters, they are just so bizarre. The way their eyes are, I think they're looking at you like, what the hell are you doing pointing that light at me? But again, stuff like this, it's just everywhere over there. It's fun to find, or more so have your guide show you where it is. Cuttlefish, all kinds of cuttlefish, sizes of cuttlefish, small, big, colorful.
Flamboyant.
What's that?
Flamboyant.
Flamboyant? No, we didn't see any on this trip, Charles. Yeah, I didn't see any flamboyant. I don't know if they're there or not, but we didn't see any on this one. Yeah. Batfish, Komodo dragons hugging it out. That's not my photo. I just like that photo. Yeah. Like little Komodo dragon love. That's for you, Jordan. Yeah. God, this frogfish has a particular name, and I forget what it is. You know when you take a photo and then you show the guide and the guide's head explodes and you think, holy shit, like I just discovered gold or something like that, right? So this was one that apparently was a cool frogfish to find. This one, just one of my favorite photos, mostly because I was taking a picture of this guy. It's like a little crab right here. I had no clue this fish was here. So I take this, and then you're looking at your computer to see what you took a picture of. And there's that little, and then I just love the photo that the two of them were there together. All right, so this was, I told you what happened was when we were in the north side, that's when the water was blue and warm. Yeah. Then we went down south, and part of why we went down south is we came to this site. I think it's called Manta Point, and the whole idea was we've been diving mackerel, and people wanted some big stuff. So they took us here to come see manta rays. And this dive site is a cleaning station. So you just go down here, it's about like 85 or 90 feet, and the water is 67 degrees. Okay? And you have to just sit there. You can't move. You just sit there waiting for the mantas to come. So we went down, we sat there, 5 minutes, 10 minutes, 15 minutes, 20 minutes, no mantas, man. And it's funny looking around. Like you start looking at people down there, and I don't know what the hell they're doing. It's like people are taking pictures of grains of sand. There's people talking to each other down there. I mean, it's just like you're freezing. It's 67, but you're like, a manta might come. Man. So we see 0 mantas on this dive. We end the dive, we surface, and the boat makes a decision. Everyone's cold because we just did a day in Horseshoe Bay. Then we did this day here. No, sorry, this was 64 here, right? Then we did this day 64. People were done with the cold. So we make a decision to motor north. All we did was go 2.5 hours north, like about 20 knots, yeah? We went north, jump in, blue 82-degree water, and mantas everywhere. I mean, and it was in like a 30-foot big old plateau, and mantas were just everywhere. So we just parked there for the day, and everyone got their manta fill. Yeah, so this was like the day of just swimming with mantas. That's also not my picture, but I like the way he's looking at us.
I don't know if I like the way he's looking at
I
us.
do, yeah. Excited. I like the way he's looking at you. I don't like the way he's looking at me. This site, although it's interesting, this is to me with the benefit of doing a liveaboard if you do Komodo. It's popular, so there are a lot of people there. And if you do the land-based resorts, you're only going to go to sites and distances that are obviously accessible by day boats. this area here was pretty close to day boat, so there were like people everywhere when we were diving over here. Yeah? Whereas almost all the rest of the trip, we were able to get away from everybody else. That area I showed you earlier, Horseshoe Bay, I felt like I was on another planet. I mean, nobody was around us the entire time. It was a really, really amazing experience. Anyone know what this guy is?
It's a bobtail squid.
Bobtail squid. This is like a fish ID test.
That's another kind of.
It's a
Not lettuce, just leaf.
Oh,
Did you not have your salad today? No. Lettuce is on the mind, yeah. All right, does anyone know what this guy is?
some sort of lionfish.
He's endemic to Indonesia.
Yeah, some kind of line.
You have to pay very close attention. This is the cornrow lionfish. It only exists in Indonesia. I'm totally making all of that up, but I just love this guy because of these shades and the cornrows he has growing out of his head.
Cornrow
lionfish. Cornrow lionfish. Okay? Yeah, please don't tell someone that Rami said there was cornrow lionfish. They might take my license away. Another hairy frogfish here, more like just furry. Why I love these guys is because you're just looking at the sand and the sand is alive. I mean, there's just stuff crawling on the sand constantly. Right? What's that?
What am I looking at there?
It's a crab.
Crabs.
See, two eyes. Sorry,
yeah,
there's a
also
pointer.
got some anemones.
Yep, I see.
See the eyes right
Yes.
here, and then
Thank
it's
you.
like a decorator kind of crab. Yeah. And then here, this turtle is like wedged under the sledge. This site right here, I wish I had a better picture, but you really just couldn't capture it. This place was just overgrown with colorful corals, and then there were just fish everywhere swimming around. It was absolutely breathtaking.
Is this like a national park or a sanctuary, so there's no fishing?
Komodo is a national park, correct? Yeah,
There's no
exactly.
fishing allowed.
There's no fishing. Yeah.
Nice.
More octopus. This was one of our. I just like the way the guy's all like curled up, like he's ready for action. He's just taking off. Yeah? I feel like he was like my little octopus, just cruising with me on the dive, or running away from me on the dive, one or the other. This guy. I mean, there's nothing special. They're everywhere, but how can you not love these guys?
Yeah,
I mean, look at them, right? And then these. I don't know if you see them, but they're juvenile. You see their little eyes. I forget what fish this was from. I had to crop the photo. It's kind of cool because there's a porcelain crab right over here as well.
It's got to be an anemone fish.
Yeah.
These right here,
Yeah.
eggs for them, yeah. Nudibranchs. Who loves nudibranchs? Yeah, you will you get overloaded with nudibranchs over here. And you know, like you guys have done those dives where the guide points at something and you're like, you either are in shock that this thing exists and it lives, or you have no idea what they're pointing at, and you just take the photo anyway because you have to appease the guide, right? So he continues showing you things. So that's sometimes what you do with nudibranchs. Anyone know what this one's called? Not the scientific name, but
Pikachu.
Pikachu.
Yeah,
Yeah, for all you
Pikachu.
Pokemon fans, you have to have your obligatory Pikachu nudibranch. More nudies, ornate ghost pipefish are. If you guys like those, they are everywhere over there, in all kinds of colors and shapes and sizes, and yeah, they're really cool. Another kind of nudibranch in that photo. This was like the whale shark experience. This is very well edited. The water was not that blue, but again, I mean, truthfully, you would be way closer than Dean and I to whale sharks. Like, if you want that kind of experience, this is a place that you can have that. Yeah, it's pretty
What are
wild.
they feeding them?
Krill and they have a. Any of you guys remember what the name of the fishing stations that are out in the water? They have a name for them. They're all over Indonesia. I'm not going to remember it, but basically it's one of those. It's just a floating feeding station in the water, a fishing station, and these fishermen go, they feed them, and then it's a source of income for them because then the tourists come in, they pay them to do the feeding. Like, you buy fish, they feed them, and then you jump in and swim with the
Is
whale
that a
sharks.
certain schedule they do for that?
Not that I know of. I think we were the only boat there. There may have been one other boat, but when we were there, it was just our group there.
Yeah.
I don't know if they do it at a certain time or not. We did it early in the morning during the day.
So then your liveaboard arranged for this? Or?
Correct. Yeah, it was part of our trip. We had planned it ahead of time, or the people who organized it had planned it ahead of time. More ghost pipefish, more of the colorful reef that you see there, and also just the fish life cruising over it. the feather stars and the crabs that live in them are so freaking cool. This is like the thing I finally have learned in diving. You don't look for this, you look for this, right? So like you kind of start learning what do things live in, and whenever you see those, go look in them, and you'll have more success finding critters than actually trying to find the critter. Right?
What kind of lens do you use for macro?
So I have a Canon camera, and I use a 100 millimeter.
100 millimeter.
So yeah. This is it's a type of seahorse, pipe seahorse, I believe. Yeah. So the first time I ever found one, this cracked me up. I'd seen a pipefish. I'd seen a seahorse in my life. I never knew a pipe seahorse existed. Right? So they point this out. I mean, it's funny because you just look on a twig, and some living thing is sticking out of the twig. Right? Like whatever you look at, there's something living on and sticking out of it. So that's a pipe seahorse. That's another one of my cousins, a hairy frogfish. That's a type of scorpion fish. It's not your regular one. I'm going to say hairy scorpion fish, but it's not. Ambon scorpion fish. I think that's right. All right, and then this is just a couple of aerial views of Komodo, but specifically, I don't know how much you guys know of Komodo. Do you guys know what the real famous dive site in Komodo is? It's called Shootgun. Anybody heard of it? Or is the local crew, they call it Shootgun? Yeah. So Shootgun is a site, if you hear about Komodo, and it's kind of in this channel right here. You begin your dive. Let's see. So you jump in and you begin the dive over here. And there's some really cool diving right over here. Just fish life, macro. And the briefing is fantastic, right? So they tell you guys, we're going to take you down there. Your guide will be with you. You're going to be hanging out, playing and swimming in this little bowl, having a good time. And then at some point, your guide's going to give you the sign. And when the guide gives you the sign, just follow him, right? That's all they tell you. And so
nice briefing.
All right, this is good. Right? This has to be good, yeah. So then you get in, you're doing your dive, and I'm just, the whole dive, all I'm doing is watching my guide. I'm waiting for the sign. That's all I care about right now, right? And so we're down there, and I look up, and then my guide and I's eyes meet, right? And he's got a look, and I'm like, that has to be the sign. It's not like the I love you, Rami look, but it's like a something good's about to happen sign. And I was like, all right, this sounds really good, right? So he gives me the sign, I follow him, and you just come around, and what's supposed to happen is you're supposed to get shot out like a cannon, right? So you're supposed to hit this, and the current is supposed to take you, and it just launches you out through this other side. Yeah? So I'm ready. I am like, come on, baby, launch me. So we get here, I hit it, and then it's like a mild current. It was so disappointing, right? So we finish the dive, they come out, and they're like, you guys want to do that again? I go, yes, like it's got to be another, to have me some better way to do this. So we jump in, we do it again. The second time was really funny. I was diving, it was my guide and I and my girlfriend and the other two people with us, we got separated from them. And we get up on top of this flat and the current was really, really ripping. Like you couldn't hold still, but for some reason our guide wanted us to stay there for a little bit. So I'm just hanging on. I'm here, Amanda's here, and our guide's right here. And then just like off the ledge, I see a manta coming. So now you're doing like the hanging on with one finger, trying to hold a giant camera up with one hand to film it. And the manta just starts coming right at us. And my girlfriend, all she wanted on this trip was to see a manta, right? So the manta comes, and she's basically wearing it like a sombrero. I mean, it just comes and it sits on top of her head.
Cool.
And she goes, did you get that? I'm like, no, I was holding on for dear life. Like, I couldn't hold it. It's the worst video ever you're ever going to see. So yeah, this is the shotgun site. I can't wait to go back and do this again. I'm hoping it's actually a shotgun the next time I go there. I'm going to go ready.
Probably depends on the tide.
What's that?
Does it depend on the tide or?
I don't even know if it's tide-based. Just whatever that day was, we just did not have the luck of getting shootgun action.
Wait, so how do you get back around?
You don't. You just go here, and then they pick you up on this side.
And then you...
Yeah, then you're done with the dive. You go, you eat one of the meals I described, and then you come back and you do it again. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So yeah, guys, that was my trip to Komodo. I'm actually going back again. Dan, Cindy, and I are running a trip in September 25 to both Bali and Komodo. If you guys are curious, even if you guys don't want to join us, I recommend joining us because basically coming with me on a trip is fucking awesome. Right? That's the best way that I can put it.
I've heard you say that before.
Yeah, right. And I delivered. But yeah, even if not, and you just have questions about Indonesia, about these areas, I'm happy to answer them. I love talking diving and talking about these places that I go and I
Is
love.
that Komodo dragon drooling?
That Komodo dragon is drooling. He is salivating. He is looking at you and just salivating. Yeah. So thank you guys for coming and listening. I appreciate being invited back here. As much as I don't enjoy these talks, I love them. So it's good to be here with you guys, and I appreciate you guys listening. Any questions? Comments?
Or we kept asking where you're going.
No, that's fine. I like it that way. I like that kind of flow.
I have a question about the Komodos.
Yeah.
They're on 3 different islands, so they...
More, actually.
Okay.
Sorry, I put it in here, but I didn't mention it. I was like... So they're on Komodo, Rinca, and Flores, Gili, Dasam, and Gili. They're on 5 different
How
islands.
can they swim
Are they-
between islands? Is that how they get there? Or?
They can swim, yeah, so they can move between islands.
Okay. So
Yeah.
they're not... I was wondering if there would be...
I've never seen one in the water, no. When we were there, like I said, we didn't see many, and we didn't see them swimming. Unfortunately not. I don't know.
Hang on the beach.
Just on the... Well, the first ones we saw, we did the tour of the national park, which if you ever go to Komodo, I do recommend doing the tour of the national park, you guys. It's actually a pretty cool experience, and the guides do a very good job. They're knowledgeable. It's pretty neat. It's on the island itself. You have the dragons and there's water buffalo, and water buffalo is one of the things that they eat. It's kind of fascinating. You walk around and you just see like skulls or remains of water buffalo, so you know that Komodo dragon got them.
Is it like we stock them periodically?
I think they just let nature do its thing. Yeah. Tourists are on the menu every once in a while. Yeah.
I've heard it.
Yeah.
Kids who don't stay by the
you said at the start that you had comments about like if you wanted to do land-based.
Yes.
So where would...
Let me go to this one.
How might that work?
But it sounds like you're really recommending the liveaboard over.
You know, Dean, here's the thing. I'm a fan of liveaboards personally because, like, land-based, you're going to get... And the diving's amazing. Like, I could dive the same dive site 10 days over there and be blown away. But one of the cool things of doing a liveaboard is we got to experience a good range of different topographies, both topside, underwater, and marine life experiences as a result of it. That's why I like liveaboards in places like this. Sometimes it could be a cost thing. We were talking about this earlier. Sometimes doing land-based can just be cheaper. In Indonesia, by the way, in Komodo, there are like 100 liveaboards that operate here, and they range. I mean, I think someone was telling me you could get up over $1,500, $2,000 and do a liveaboard, and you can spend $9,000 and do a liveaboard over this. So they're all over the place, right? But right here, Abhishek, there's a area called Labuan Bajo. So Labuan Bajo is one of the most popular places where people will go and do land-based diving in Komodo. There are other areas as well. Just this is the one that I believe is the most well-known.
And you had said like there could be local boats at the manta points. That means they can go at least as that far.
Yeah, and
Day
they may have been coming from like over here,
Oh,
for example. Yes, yeah, exactly, yeah.
So
Yes, sir.
I've got a question. So,
Yes.
being that Indonesia is where Eurasian and Australian biogeographic realms meet, is there any liveaboard or any route that takes you from kind of seeing the more Australian side of animals up to the Eurasian side? Is there a liveaboard where you can watch the animals change from one realm to another?
That is a good question, Zach. I don't know from where. So I don't know if someone's doing something from Australia and then coming up this way. There are several operators who do biodiversity trips, and they're like 16, 17-day trips.
Yeah.
And what they will do is, and almost always they're done when they're switching seasons. So most liveaboards will do like Raja Ampat, Komodo, and the Banda Sea. Right? Those are the 3 areas they might operate. So Banda Sea, they'll operate around here. Raja Ampat, they operate here. And then Komodo, they operate here. So whenever they're starting a new season, they'll do a crossing trip. And they call it a biodiversity trip. And then those, you will get to see the variety. But those that I know of are all within Indonesia. I don't know if there's one that starts in Australia and works its way here.
Well, they call it the Wallace line, and it goes through Indonesia. So it's the different realms of animals from Australia and Eurasia. They meet in Indonesia. So I was kind of curious.
It's like a dividing line somewhere.
Yes,
Yeah.
yeah.
It's called the Wallace Line?
Yeah,
Yeah,
I've heard of
Okay.
that.
Okay. Yeah, so I don't know if there's a boat that does that. It'd be worth exploring. That would be pretty cool.
Well, it's not like a.
It's not like a border,
It's
the
very
ocean,
distinct.
but it's like a distinct area of the world where animals fundamentally change.
Yeah, that would be pretty cool to see.
Yeah, I was just curious.
But no, nothing that I know of.
So the boat you're on, that's a wood boat?
It's a wood boat. A lot of the boats in Indonesia are. A lot of
How
them
many
are.
people?
16 divers. It takes. Yeah, 16 divers, 4 guides. They have 4
Are they like
speedboats.
separate rooms or bunk beds?
It's 2 people to a cabin. Yeah, and they either set them up as like one bigger bed or their bunks are crossed. Yeah.
And the boat you're on was sail assist.
Was what?
Sail assist.
No,
They just had
pretty
this-
much all the boats there have the sails because it's like a really cool looking thing.
Oh, that's
But they rarely ever use them, and the crew hates when they have to deploy.
I was wondering about
Yeah.
that.
Like they do it as a special occasion thing for a group every once in a while, but my understanding is the crew hates it, so I don't ask for it. Yeah.
And it's pretty calm water, right? It's not rocky.
Yeah, so that's a really good question. I didn't really talk about conditions. The 3 trips I've done to Indonesia now, and it is interesting. I mean, you are kind of somewhat in open water sometimes, but I've never had really rough seas there. Relatively calm, and not anything bad. Yeah, I'd say I've spent 35, 36 days on a liveaboard in Indonesia, and I don't know that we once had bad weather. Yeah. By the way, on that note, Komodo diving wise, if you're thinking of going there, I would highly recommend. You do need to be an experienced diver to do it, right? If you want to kind of do all of it. There can be some strong currents. Sometimes we did some dives where the currents were really strong. But other than that, like you're not really doing super deep diving. You don't have to. A lot of the really good stuff is in shallower water. That's where most of the color and life is. But it just can be very currenty.
You do drift dives in the current?
Yeah, they're all drift dives. You only dive off of the speedboats, so you don't.
I don't mind current as long as I don't have to swim.
Yeah, I mean it's one of those, Charles. It's like. You always go with the current, then every once in a while you're down there and you're asking yourself, why is my guide swimming me against the current for 30 minutes, And then you start replaying
And
your
then
day.
you look at some of the fish down there, and they're going
Yeah,
against the
oh,
current.
yeah.
No problem.
Yeah.
What's the matter with you?
We did a dive one time where our guide, it was 4 of us, he gave us the briefing and he goes, guys, we're going to jump in. As soon as we jump in, we're going to hit the wall, we're going to go right. He looks at all of the 4 of us, he goes, you guys got it? We go, we got it. We hit the water, for whatever reason, the 4 of us went left. All 4 of us just went left. Yeah.
Cool.
So we go, we do our dive.
You're a rebel, man.
But it was weird. We didn't communicate nothing. We all felt it was right to go left. So we go, we do the dive. He doesn't say a word to us. We come up, we do our serviceable, we jump in on the next dive. The next dive, 60 minutes, we swim against the current, right? So we come up and I look at my buddy Steve and I go, hey man, is he pissed at us? And he goes, I don't know, but that's what I was thinking on the entire dive. So I'm like, I think we screwed up because I don't know what that was. Then we get to the big boat and all 4 groups, their guides just swam them against the current for some reason on that dive. Yeah. So I don't mind it either. I drift. Generally, my rule is I put my life in the guide's hands, and if for whatever reason he sees fit to swim against the current, I'm going to trust him. In this instance, I did not figure it out. I did not understand why he made us do it. No.
Wait, we're diving at Sabo once, and for whatever reason, took us with a strong current, and we're like struggling to get back, and this was a low port. We had like 15 of us hanging to a mooring, basically waiting for him to shuttle us back with the dinghy. I mean, it was like,
Any particular equipment you'd recommend for these kind of?
No, that's a good question.
I saw them had the sticks.
Yeah, so a lot of people use muck sticks. Photographers especially like those, or sometimes you take it off. Like, thanks for coming, man. Have a good one. Everybody know what a muck stick is or a pointer stick? Is everybody familiar with that? Are you guys familiar with muck stick or pointer stick?
I don't. No.
It's just like
We'll
a
have to get
little aluminum stick that people use to put in the sand to stabilize themselves so that you don't touch anything with your finger, just to get a little bit of extra support. A lot of people, for macro diving especially, a lot of people use them. I know someone gave me a tip. He uses one where he puts it down and then he sets his camera on top of it.
Oh.
So just kind of like a
Stay
model.
on.
Reef hooks. Yeah.
So that was the one thing I was going to say. We did one dive here where we hooked in. They did tell us that, you guys, we might do some dives where the current is strong enough that we might have to hook in. So we did one dive. Honestly, we kind of hooked in just because I wanted to freaking hook in. I've never hooked in my life. And finally there was like somewhat of a current, so we hooked in. And then the funny thing is the guides are just like swimming in front of you. Like you're just sitting there hooked in.
You're sitting there hooked
The
in.
guide acts
I
like,
see it, yeah.
he's like, there's no current. He's just going back and forth looking at you. But yeah, that was one dive that we hooked in on it, Jordan. My understanding is there can be dives where the current is strong enough that you do want to hook in. And, you know, the only reason I would ever want to hook in is if they tell me, like, hey, you can't get blown away. I'm not a fan of sitting in one place. Personally, I prefer to be moving and diving with the marine life. But I understand the concept is, like, if you don't hook in, you're going to get blown off the reef, and then that just could be a problem, right? And so that's kind of the only situation I would personally want to use it.
Or sit and watch the pelagics.
And I get that. Like, I get the point is to sit and watch the pelagics. I would prefer to be drifting or swimming with them personally. But yeah, so no, that's reef hook one time. I forgot who asked about reef hooks. That was it.
Did that walking Cocos, you know, where you just sit and watch the show.
Yeah, that was like, have you done Socorro, Charles, or no?
No.
That was like my distinction between Cocos and Socorros. Cocos was awesome, but it's a lot of just sitting and watching, whereas Socorro, you get to swim with them all the time. I enjoy that a lot more. Any other questions? We'll do next presentation on Socorro, D.
Okay.
All right.
Have next month?
Any other questions, you guys? Comments, curiosities? Yeah? Cool. Thank you guys. Much appreciated.
Thank you very much.
You're very welcome.